Here we are. Now we are on history, and we're dealing with the World War One and what happens with there very quickly. We're not even going to go much into it. The years of World War One and the decades following were years filled with significant political and social changes. Approximately 3,200,000 Jews were in the U.S., and Europe had approximately 12 million, and that's why Europe remained the center of Jewish learning and home for most of the great Torah scholars. Okay, we said before that the yeshivot, the schools of the Jewish schools of learning, did not want to come to America because America was the Wild West, basically. Okay, everything was open here. There was promises of gold, the gold of Medina. They call it the gold state, where the streets were paved with gold. Everything was free, and there was free thinking. Everything was open. There was no leadership. Like I said before, there was really no leadership there until so much later. So the yeshiva said, we don't want to go to the Treif of Medina, literally the unkosher state, because they were afraid of losing the Jews to spiritual ruin. Okay? Whether or not they were wrong, right, that's going to be a question that is discussed by God and the historians. But it's what happened. Okay, but that's really why they weren't running to the United States of America. In Europe, you had such great people such as Rabbi Israel Meir Kagan, who known as the Chafetz Chaim. He was the one who made famous the importance of proper speech, in other words, the dangers of lashon hara, of slander, and so on and so forth. He wrote many.
You said that was World War One.
Around World War. Sorry.
You said around World War One they didn't want to come here.
Yeah.
I know we discussed this. When did they think immigration of Jews come to the United States?
Oh, you had many times. Mostly it was Russian. The Russian people were coming in with every pogrom. That was the
late 1800s when it started.
Yeah. You had 1800s was more the Germans. So the 1900s are the Polish, the Russians, where they're coming en masse.
Yeah, that's what
right. That's when they're coming en masse because they're being killed. So let's run.
No, I
okay, but still, in all, the rabbis weren't all for that. Because they're saying, you'll be able to live, but you'll spiritually be dead. Because they're going to kill you. Okay, so they were very much afraid of assimilation. For good reason, by the way. We did assimilate very much in this country.
Right.
Okay, so they were really right. And that it was spiritually probably one of the worst things that we could have done. But why? Because the rabbis didn't come. If the rabbis would have said, we're all moving. We're all going to transport. Okay, so they could have brought the yeshiva with them. And they could have made a new, quote-unquote, Europe. Which is and the mistake that they made when they came to America was that they thought they could bring Europe here. That was a big mistake. To this very day, it's the mistake. Because this very day, when they tried to bring it back to that situation, there's me speaking that I'm going to be killed because I'm on the internet when I say this. But it's me speaking, saying that, to me, I still think that's the wrong thing. You cannot, in the United States of America, tell people what to do. You can try to cajole them, you can try to convince them, you can try to educate them, say this is what's going on. But more than that, you don't have the same force that we did in Europe, because in Europe, clergy controlled. Clergy controlled. Here we don't have that control. Here, if you don't like what I'm going to say, you're going to walk out the door and never see me, and certainly won't give money to the Midwest Torah Center Building Fund. Plug as chief plug. Okay. But really, think about that. When somebody doesn't like the rabbi or what the rabbi said, they walk away. Either they leave Judaism or they go to a different minister, a rabbi, or a different shul, whatever it's going to be. So, and the same thing with churches. You don't like what the minister says, they walk away. The only one that hasn't experienced that, as far as I know, but I'm really not involved in the world, would be the Islamic religion. I don't know if you don't like the imam, if you walk to a different religion. It may be that in America, they're also walking away already. I'm not sure. But that would be interesting to know if they're also, within one generation, affected by the American mentality of, I don't like what you're saying, therefore I'm going to walk away. Okay, but that was, when the rabbis came to this country, they thought they could transplant it. And some of them did, but most of them did not. Okay. Very few could actually pull that off.
On a very small scale, more than likely, right?
Correct.
They would do that.
Well, you have the Hasidim do it, but even they have more independence these days. But the best place to look at would be what Rav Aaron Kotler did. He took a Lakewood. Lakewood, New Jersey was a little chicken, where they bring up chicken. What do they call it? Chicken farm. I don't know what they call it.
Yep.
Chicken farm?
Yep,
Okay.
that.
So that's what they used to build, have this. So he went with 100 people, I think this was, and he started a school. He wanted to get away from the city, he wanted to be left alone, and he wanted to start a little enclave. He thought, in his mind, I think he was looking for, maybe he's only looking for 100 people, I forget what it was. But he wanted to start that and bring back that learning center, okay? He was extremely successful, and today it's 4,000 families strong, okay? And that, they branched out. It's called the Lakewood model, and they've branched out. And so there are many communities, including this one. Okay, this the Kollel, I think, is a product of that sort of a system. Okay, so if you have a charismatic leader like Rav Aaron Kotler, or we'll talk about others too, but Reb Soloveitchik from Yeshiva University, he was also a quote-unquote charismatic leader. The Lubavitcher Rebbe was extremely charismatic. Okay. And they would bring people along, and they would follow whatever they say. Okay, the Rav wasn't that in that sort of a fashion, but certainly Rav Aaron was. Okay, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe, absolutely. Okay.
So back to the Europe, you said the clergy was in control. How did they get that control and keep that control versus America?
The church, because as long as the church had control and the government was backing that, so they were in good control. They were in
Roman Catholic clergy.
Yeah. That's not saying church control.
But we're talking Judaism. You come here, you don't like what the rabbi says, I'm down the road.
Correct.
In Europe, that wasn't necessarily the case.
No, it wasn't. There would be too much societal pressure against you. Here, you can do whatever you want. Here we have. I'm telling you, this is the world of freedom here. If I don't like what the rabbi says, I walk away. Either I walk away from Judaism, and there's really no repercussions to that. Or I just go to a different show. Again, there's no repercussions to that.
But in Europe, there were repercussions to that.
Of course.
Because you're going to stand out more, being out on your own.
I'm in a little village, whatever. There's only one shoulder. No break-offs. So if I disagree or I'm doing something wrong, so the rabbi's going to say, you can't buy from that vendor. Oh, I can't buy from that vendor. I can't talk to that vendor. You get excommunicated. That was the power of Europe. There's no question about that. And there wasn't any place you could run. You couldn't go to the church. The church wasn't welcoming to you either at that point.
Right.
You know, so like I said, you were friendless, and you were in a small place. So as a result, Europe was much stronger base because they were pro that sort of thing. There wasn't separation of church and state.
Where would you say was concentrated the most with the Jews? In Germany?
Oh yeah, no, you had. It all depends on what time period, but you had Germany, you had Russia. Russia, they were also very much in control. That's how it was. Like I said, there was no place to go, and if I wasn't, think about Russia. You're in the Pale of Settlement. You have a little area with 2 million Jews who are barely eking out a living, if even that. And suddenly the rabbi says, because the person's not giving his wife a divorce or not keeping Shabbat, you can't buy from him. Well, that's just death. You're going to do repentance really quickly. You're not going to spend the time saying, "Oh, I'm independent. Oh, I don't need you." Yes, you do. You do. And like I said, I'm sure it was the same way in the beginning of America, where we all were living in little communities. And would it be that way in Amish?
Like the shunning.
Shunning, right? That's all. Once I shun you, it's over.
You're out of business.
Right. So that you're going to do repentance. You're going to say, "Okay, I quit. I'm going to follow you." You may not really believe it, but you're not going to fight it,
right?
Because you want to eat. So I said that was in America though, we really broke that quite quickly. We came to this country looking to escape religious persecution, which means escape the clergy. Really, that's what we're trying to do: escape the clergy, and escape all the trappings that went with that.
You just went west and reinvented yourself.
Right. So that's really what it was. Yeah. Okay. So, like I said, back to Europe though. Like I said, you had the Chafetz Chaim. You also had Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, known as the Brisker Rav, and he developed a very interesting analytical method of how to study the Talmud that would revolutionize the yeshiva world. Okay. He was so that's the next one. From him, by the way, you would get Reb Joseph Soloveitchik, who would be the leader of what we call modern Orthodoxy, or YU, what do we call that today? Okay, here's a person that we also have to give a lot of credit to, Sarah Schneer. Sarah Schneer was from the years 1883 to 1938. She was a seamstress in Poland, and she single-handedly revolutionized Jewish education for women by founding the official Jewish school for girls. She is who we have the Beis Yaakov. If not for Sarah Schneer, you would not have higher education for girls. Because what's it necessary for? In their minds. Okay? All they're going to do is get married, have kids, and close. You're not working. Okay? What Sarah Schneer saw was that the women were being educated secularly in a very high fashion. And I would say...
In America?
No, in Europe. In Europe. They were going to, they were in, they could be learning French, music, or they had all these things, okay? So here they were being educated in a secular manner, but not Jewish manner.
Western Europe?
I guess. Again, not this pale assessment. Pale, you were living in the Dark Ages. But if you're in any place where they have any normal education, so the women were getting decent amounts of education. As a result, though, they weren't getting a Jewish education. So what she saw was they were totally devoid of a foundation of Jewish belief, and she said it's the system that we're presently employing, namely that she learns from the mom, isn't working. We have to change this. She garnered the support of the Chafetz Chaim. Okay, and so everybody ultimately, because he said it, and he was considered the giant of the generation, if he agreed, then it must be good. And it took a lot of years, but they finally got that system going. Like I said, today, if not for the Beis Yaakov system, you would have lost a lot of people, because the women wouldn't know what to do, and they wouldn't be able to carry it on. The women are the teachers of our next generation. And if you look at most schools, most of the teachers are women. Okay, so until you get to higher grades. But all the nursery until 4th and 5th grade, women. And so they're teaching, and they're able to continue on in their homes. That was really her addition to the Jewish world. So she really has to get a lot of credit for that. So, and I think people sometimes forget that. In 1923, you had Rav Meir Shapiro from Lublin, Poland. He created a system called Daf Yomi, which means I study a folio of Talmud every day. I finish it in 7.5 years. Okay? What obviously he saw was people were not studying Talmud enough, and certainly not seeing the whole thing. So what he said was, you study a page a day. Now, in his mind, I don't believe that he ever envisioned what we do now. Namely, we run through a page of Talmud in 15 minutes. And we think, oh, we did our job. Okay, I don't think he was looking for that. I personally think, I may be wrong, but I personally think that he was saying, take that one page and study it and know it every day. Okay? Now, don't just read it like a novel, but rather really work at it, but don't get stuck. Because what happens if you go to yeshiva, and normally in the yeshiva they'll learn 20 pages in 1 year, if you're lucky. And that's a really fast yeshiva to do it. You can sometimes you're learning only 10 pages in 1 year, but you're going very much in depth. And so he was saying you're getting lost. You're not seeing everything. You're not seeing anything. You're seeing a few pages here and there. No big deal. Rather, see the whole thing. At least once in your life, go through the whole Talmud. But again, if you have 7.5 years, and I'm really taking a page, and I'm putting in, let's say, an hour or two for that one page, I'm going to know it pretty well. I will. If on the other hand, if I do it 15 minutes, I'm just reading a novel. So I'm pretty sure Rev. Meir Shapiro is saying to study it really well, more than what we do, but that is still, we have to give him credit because in 1997, he says, in America alone, we had 70,000 people participating in the completion. Today is much more. Today you have the Art Scroll out there. You have so many Jewish people doing this, it's not even funny. All over the world we're learning Daf Yomi. And the beautiful thing about Daf Yomi, learning the page, is that the same page I'm learning today, or that God will learn today, millions of people around the world are learning the same exact page. Think about the power of that. I'm not alone. No matter where I am, I'm not alone. We have a computer, we can go online, plenty of things online for this sort of thing, okay? Or you can actually join a class. We have a class in town, so if someone would want to go to that class, they could do that. It's a really nice way of doing it, and it brings a lot of what we call achdut, unity, to the Jewish people. Think about that. I'm learning it, and the guy in Italy is learning the same page. Okay, so that's what it was. Fine. Now, World War I. So the First World War was precipitated by the Serbians' national assassination. I can't speak anymore. Of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria in Sarajevo in late June 1914. On July 28th, Austria-Hungary declared war on Hungary, but the war took on far greater magnitude on August 1st when Germany declared war on Russia. On August 1st, which happened to be the 9th of Av. Okay. So, approximately 500,000 Jewish soldiers fought on the war on both sides. And then, of course, you have Jews living in the central battle zones because Jews were all over Europe. Anyway, we were everywhere. We weren't in one particular place. And over 21 million people were wounded. 8.5 million people died. And so it was really bad for everybody. Okay? In the middle of World War I, you had the Russian Revolution, starting with the demonstrations against Tsar Nicholas II, and by 1917, the Bolshevik Revolution was in full swing. Does anybody know what Bolshevik means?
The majority.
There you go. Thank you. Bolshevik. I was amazed when I saw that, but I've heard the Bolshevik Revolution many times. So of course I went to the greatest source in the world, Wikipedia, and
they were a very small minority, but they called themselves
right.
the school people.
Yeah, and they put all you need is 51%.
The 1%.
1%, that's right. So either that or the ones with the most guns. But it's so they were in full swing, and of course Jews were supporting the communists, seeing in their universal proletariat, aware of the undiminishing cycle of poverty and victimization. There was even a special Jewish section of the Communist Party called, and I can't pronounce that, the Yevsektisa. One of that, okay. Now, why would the Jews want to be communists, by the way? In reality, besides that there was Marx and everything else. Marx wasn't the best, he wasn't one of our best students.
It overturned the state religion for one thing.
Yeah.
The pogroms were
right.
led by the church.
Correct. And so they also said if everybody's equal, if it's just a matter of workers, so then we won't be hated as much, and we can work with that, and we can survive and thrive, so on and so forth. They bought into the system. It was false, because what would happen is one of the goals of, or the nature of communism, is to wipe out religion. Mm-hmm. They never want to give the religion up. They just want to be communists because they figured, okay, so I can support my family.
I think they fell into the trap of thinking it was just the state religion that they were against.
Could be.
Because to eliminate the Tsar, you had to get rid of Russian Orthodoxy.
Right. Okay.
But they didn't realize they were against all religion.
Correct. And that's what I'm saying. Since they didn't realize that, or maybe they thought they could, maybe they thought it didn't apply to them, whatever the case was. Okay? It could be that they were trying to get out of it too. Don't forget, assimilation is always a very easy thing to do. If I can assimilate and give up this stuff that's separating me, why not? Okay, because all it is a noose around my neck. That's how people were thinking. Again, if I'm being killed year after year after year because I'm Jewish, and I'm doing that which I think is proper, in other words, I'm following Jewish law, and God promised me that if I follow Jewish law, I wouldn't be affected, and yet I'm being killed, so something must be wrong here. So rather give it up already, leave me alone. You want me to give this up, I'm more than happy to give it up. And that's how people were thinking, potentially. Or it could have been they just
It's very similar to what's happening today. You know, if you're being victimized and you're at the bottom of society, and somebody starts saying hope and change, any change would be good. You know,
Right.
you
Correct.
It'll ride this wave, and things will be better for it.
Right, and that's why even with all the hope and change, if you will. So when it came to the 1%ers, and everybody was making little protests around here, you know, besides Wall Street, then you had somebody walking up and down the street in South Bend. Well, I think one or two people. That's all it was. That's all I saw. By something. I remember that I saw that. You know, all this stuff, and I was thinking, what are they protesting? I didn't know what they're protesting anymore. Didn't make sense. At least on Wall Street, I didn't even know what they were protesting on Wall Street. What were they? Nobody knows what they were protesting on Wall Street. The people on Wall Street didn't know what they were protesting on Wall Street. They all had different ideas. Okay, that's why that didn't last. And if the news media wouldn't have given them 5-second thought, it wouldn't have lasted more than 2 days. But because they went down there and they saw 3,000 people on Wall Street milling themselves around and making libraries here and there. Okay, even you know who made fun of that? Actually, Jon Stewart. He made go on YouTube for the Jon Stewart Wall Street, and you'll see it's a very interesting video because what he shows is there were different classes even there within their own revolution. That didn't last. They had different classes, but they don't think. The rabbis say, who is a wise person? One of the opinion is the one who sees the outcome of their actions. They don't. In this case, the Jews didn't think what was the outcome of their actions, namely they'd have to give up that which makes them Jewish, and the same way as the people on Wall Street, the protesters didn't think. They didn't see what was going to come out of it.
They have an interesting metaphor for this in history classes. But grabbing the tail of the tiger, you never know who it's going to eat.
Yeah, okay, there you go, okay. So by the time the Russian Revolution ended, at least 60,000 Jews have been killed. Another result of the revolution that was short-lived was independence of the Ukraine. And the Ukrainians had a history of virulent anti-Semitism. And their leader, Simon Petloura, encouraged these pogroms. Okay, so with every new thing, we had people killing the Jews anyway. So it never, you know, that's why we say pray for the state and pray for the welfare of the government. It's interesting. The Jews always, it says in Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers, written in, put into writing in Greco-Roman times. And it says you have to always pray for the welfare of the government. Why? Not because the government was their friend, simply because the government kept order. And without the government there, everybody's going to eat each other up. Well, if you're going to put the anti-Semites in charge and say you're the new leaders, you shouldn't be surprised when you're being killed. Okay? And I'm not saying that they voted them in, but when they're helping that, in other words, the enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of thing. So I'm going to help them get rid of one guy to put somebody else in. I'm not doing myself any favors. Okay. But they wouldn't know that. They thought that these people, because they were anti-religion or whatever it's going to be, they thought their prejudice would die quick because they don't believe in that. No. Again, I don't need religion to hate. I can just hate on my own. And they didn't, for whatever reason, they didn't realize that. With its defeat in World War I, the Ottoman Empire fell. Britain, whose army entered Jerusalem in 1917, was under the leadership of the British Commander-in-Chief Sir Edmund Allenby, who was granted a ruling mandate over Palestine by the League of Nations. Within the British government, there were a number of officials who were very pro-Zionist. Again, Zionist means the lovers of Israel, the land of Israel. Particularly Lord Arthur Balfour. Everybody knows Balfour's name? Have you heard of Arthur Balfour? He's the one who makes the Balfour Declaration. saying that Palestine should be a home for the Jews. Okay, in 1917, the British issued the Balfour Declaration, stating in effect that His Majesty's government views with favor the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine without prejudice to the local inhabitants. Simply put, the British declared that yes, the Jews could have a state of Palestine. At the same time, there were also Jews lived in Israel. Who was that? Chaim Weizmann. Remember him? He developed a special process that helped the British keep their explosives dry and made the bombs explode at a certain altitude. He also was the president of the World Zionist Congress, and he would become the first president of the state of Israel. So, since he's helping them in the war effort, it only was, I wash your hands, you wash mine, sort of thing. A show of gratitude. We'll take that piece of desert that they call Palestine. Okay, so that was Lord Arthur Balfour giving in a little bit, since he liked Zion anyway. I'm not sure if he was a good Christian or what, but he had some sort of feeling. So he gave it. He had it declared that there should be a Jewish place. But it doesn't stop there, though, as we all know, because we would think that in 1917 they declared that everybody should run to Israel, make it a Jewish state, and so on and so forth. No, it doesn't work. Because, let's face it, it says without prejudice to the local inhabitants. Okay, so we still have people living there. While it's a Jewish state, you have to work with everybody. Okay, and you're not going to take it over. Britain's victory against the Turks came with the assistance of the Jews in Palestine. You had Nili, which stands for Netzach Yisrael Lo Yishaker. The eternity of Israel will not be found to be false. And that was the first Jewish spy network, which would be a predecessor to the Mossad. And that was put together by Avshalom Feinberg and Aaron Aronson. And their job was to spy against the Turks on behalf of the British. They were based in Zichron Yaakov. And their sister, Aaron's sister, Sarah, would be, she was a local person there. When in 1917 the Turks broke the spy ring, Sarah was captured, tortured for about 3 days, and then she managed to, according to this, commit suicide. The other people, the other members of the group were captured and killed. There were also Jews from who were part of the British Army. Two of the famous Jewish fighters were Joseph Trumbull and Vladimir. I think that's how I'm saying it. I know the last name, Jabotinsky. You have Jabotinsky and you have Trumbull. Trumbull would be deported to Egypt after he refused to join the Turkish army. In Alexandria, called for the formation of a legion of volunteers drawn from Eretz Israel, deportees to be at the disposal of the British and to help liberate the country. Jabotinsky was one of the founders of the Jewish battalions within the British Army in the First World War. He organized Jewish resistance and was also political leader of the Irgun Tzvei Leumi, and his political theory would become the ideological basis for new activist and socially oriented Zionist policy. So you have those people who are leading troops in the British Army against the Turks. So the Jews are trying to help the British. Why? Because the British seem to be nice to the Jews at that point. Right? The Turks were mean. By the way, the Turks were the Sephardic run. Like I said, we don't really hear about Sephardic history, right? But that's the Sephardim, the Spanish Jews, were under the control of the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire was no longer being nice. They weren't playing nicely with people. So since they're not being played nicely, well, you're going to be revolted against once the new savior, namely the British, come in and say, "Oh, this is your homeland." So it really was getting your allies together. So I'm going to have a better time with the British who are going to let me become somewhat independent, or at least live in my ancient homeland, than these Ottoman Turks who are killing me. Okay, that's why the Turks would lose ultimately. In July 1922, so the League of Nations issued the Palestinian Mandate to Britain, giving the British the job of overseeing the establishment of a Jewish state in Israel, which became known as the British Mandate. The job was to supervise, keep peace, and basically help the establishment of the state. Well, that sounded really great until they created a car and have a combustion engine. In order to run the engine, you need oil. Who has the oil? The Arabs. Okay, the Arabs have the oil. The Jews didn't get that. Wasn't part of our land agreement. We didn't get the oil. So now the British have a dual thing going on. On one hand, they owe the Jews because of the Balfour Declaration, so they owe the Jews a state, as it were. On the other hand, they have to make nice with the Arabs, who hate the Jews anyway, and who, because we helped to defeat their army, so it makes sense that they hate us in that sense. And so they want to cuddle up to the Arabs too. So the British are really in a no-win situation. On one hand, they have to cuddle up to the Jews because we gave them because Weizmann helped their bomb effort, their war effort. On the other hand, if they don't cuddle up to the Arabs, so they're going to lose their oil. So what do you do? Okay? I'm not trying to make the British look good. I'm just saying, in reality, there's politics going on here. How do you get out of that?
Play both sides.
Play both sides of the fence, but you can't do that either. Okay? So the pro-Arab feelings were especially enhanced when images of the Lawrence of Arabia. Remember that wonderful movie with, what's his name? Peter O'Toole, thank you. That wonderful movie. Well, he helped organize the Arabs to fight against the Turks for the British. So now the Arabs also fought, some of them, fought against the Turks, who weren't their best friends. Okay? The Ottoman Empire was making enemies on all sides. So not only did the Jews help, but also the Arabs helped. Oh, now I really don't know what to do anymore. And Sir John Glove, who trained Arab armies and later became the chief of staff for the Jordanian army, even though he was British. As a result of Britain's desire to appease the oil-rich Arabs and the latent British anti-Semitism, Britain started to change its tone regarding the establishment of the Jewish people and limit immigration. Here, what they said, it's a Jewish state. Go for it. And now suddenly we have the white papers. We have white papers in 1920 and 1930s that are regarded to stop Jews from coming in. In 1922, you have the white paper not only established an economic absorption center for settlement, but separated the land on the east bank of the Jordan from the original Palestinian mandate. And that land was given to Imar Abdullah, otherwise known today as Jordan. Jordan is a fake country. To go along with that argue you gave me, it's a fake country. We have to deal with it, but it was never there. Okay, it's something that the British decided. The 1930 white paper, following the Arab riots, gave the government officials the right to curtail Jewish immigration settlement if it interfered with the ability of Arab residents to obtain work. Okay. This resulted in severely limiting the areas in which Jews could settle the land. Now, I want you to hear the years, 1930. We're revving up the Nazi machine. We're only 8 years away from Kristallnacht. And anti-Semitism was becoming very, it was virulent anti-Semitism already. They weren't, because the Nuremberg laws were being put into place. Everything was being put into place. Hitler didn't happen overnight. Nothing happens overnight. There was a long-standing, to use today's language, executive orders, which were being signed. Nothing was by vote anymore. It was all executive orders. So he was really putting laws into effect that would limit the Jews in Germany and when any area he had to what they could do. And the Jews in those areas are just saying this too will pass. We'll vote him out. We'll get rid of him. It doesn't work. At the same time, Britain is also closing the borders. The world is closing the borders on the Jews. For the first time in history, we don't have to have any place to run. That's really what's happening. But it's slow, very slow process. It's going to hit everybody in the face, but it's a slow process. But that's what they're doing here.
There's a real interesting character that runs all the way through this period of history. The Grand Mufti.
Right, the Grand Mufti, yeah.
He's the leader of the Turks.
And
he blames all of their losses on the Jews. And he wants them exterminated.
Correct.
He's the one that led to the Armenian, the killing of the Armenians in 1910.
Right.
He takes refuge
Correct.
And he's the one that when they wanted to ship the Jews out of Europe to Palestine, to get rid of them, or wherever they wanted to go, he insists that they be exterminated. He's in that final solution.
Yes, very much so.
He is
Yes.
there.
Yes.
This is the kicker. He is the grandfather of Arafat.
Yeah.
Yasser
Oh,
Arafat.
Well, Yasser Arafat never revoked in Palestinian liberation organizations. First line of their platform, it says we want to wipe out
Extermination.
the state of Israel. We want to drive them into the ocean. That never was removed. Even though Clinton said it should be removed, everybody says it never was removed. It's still part of their charter, and you can't, to say they really don't mean it.
How do you negotiate?
You can't negotiate with somebody who wants to kill me. I'm sorry, but like I said,
What we had with our Josh, the under duress.
Right.
You can't.
Right. Let me just finish this little section here, so we can start the new one next week. Okay. So there were two Jewish reactions to what the British did. One was you had the Irgun Tzvei Le'ume, which was the national military organization. This was the under Menachem Begin. The policy of the Irgun was to attack the British military because the British were now enemies of the Jewish people. On the other hand, you had the Haganah, which would be the forerunner of the IDF. They were giving restraint. They just wanted to protect the Jews that were there. They were also actively involved in the Aliyah Bet movement, which was the illegal immigration activities, which attempted to remove Jews from Europe and later from Nazi territory and later still from displaced person camps in Cyprus to Palestine through secret trails and by running the British Navy blockades. Okay, so you have two groups, one the Haganah and then the Irgun. The Irgun would have been what we would call today thugs. That's how people would want to place them, versus the Haganah, which was protectors. Okay, without both of them, the state wouldn't have run. The Irgun.
That was, you had said it before, that wasn't the,
That was not the IDF. They were the.
No, I know it wasn't the IDF, but it wasn't the predecessor of the Mossad, was it?
No. That was a different thing. The Irgun would be military guerrilla warfare, basically.
Right.
That's all it was. It was run by Menachem. It was the underground thing.
Yeah, it was run by Menachem Begin.
Right. That was run by Begin, and he wanted to. He saw the British as enemies, which they were at that point, and so he was attacking any chance he did. It was guerrilla warfare. Let's drive you out. If it wasn't for the Irgun, the British probably would not have gone. But because they were so tired of being attacked, British would have stayed. The British would have probably stayed. Yeah, that was the point.
Is there still an Irgun in Israel?
No, there's no. If there is, and nobody knows about it. I mean, it's.
Because I still hear the word you were there.
I don't think they're still there. Like I said, that was today we would call them the thugs. I mean, it's there's a better word for it, but I can't think of what it is. But they were not the official army. Okay. So the Arabs did attack in addition to small assaults on settlements. In 1921, you had Arab riots in Jaffa, which would take the lives of 47 Jews. In 1929, this is something that nobody talks about for some reason. There were approximately 120 Jews in the land of Israel. And over 120,000 Jews, thank you, in the land of Israel. And over 4 million Jews in the U.S. 1929, of course, is the year that the Wall Street crashed, setting the stage for the Great Depression. Also, what happened was in 1929, you had an Arab riot in the town of Hebron. Hebron is the place where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are buried. Okay, it's a very holy spot for the Jewish people. And they killed 67 Jews, including elderly, women, and children. This was not a military war. This was just killing Jews to kill Jews. Okay, and the accounts of the by the way, he lists his 4 cities that have always been considered sacred. One is Jerusalem, the next one is Tiberias, the next one is Sfat, and of course Hebron. So accounts of the Hebron massacre report that Arab neighbors turning on Jewish neighbors and friends suddenly turning into bloodthirsty enemies. And we hear a lot of this. By the way, for those who, my father, for instance, was in Germany when it turned. He said the same thing. It turned overnight. His friends in one night were his friends. The next day, wanted to kill him. So I don't doubt that this is what happened in Hebron. In one day, they're friends. The next day, they get the news, we should kill Jews. And it took them no time at all to turn into bloodthirsty people. It's just the way it was. Because really, that prejudice is always there. In the Christian religion, you have Jews kill Jesus. Fine. Then in the Islamic religion, you have we're considered pigs and something to be wiped out. So either way, either religion is telling its adherents, as going to church or mosque, that we are an evil people. Okay? And if you listen to any imam today on the extreme right, you're going to hear them very strongly say, kill Jews wherever you see them. I mean, it doesn't mean Israel, it means anywhere. And hopefully, they don't listen, but God should protect everybody from all these idiots, but I'm lying when I say that too. But still, it's something that we have to be very vigilant of in the United States even, but we have to protect ourselves. Okay? When the pogrom was over, all the Jews fled Hebron for the first time. The city was without Jews. It had a population of 100 years, and the city remained Jewless, if you will, Judenrein, to use the German word, free of Jews, until in 67 when we finally took the area over again, and now it's back to being an Arab stronghold. I think we gave it away one more time. Okay. Along with the active political Zionist movement, there was growing religious Zionist movement. In the religious world, you had Agudat Yisrael, the movement of the Jewish people, which was a non-Zionist or even anti-Zionist movement of Orthodox Jews. They were, however, a significant number of Orthodox Jews who were Zionists, and had started what was called the Mizrahi movement. That would become known as B'nai Akiva. You also had a great number of ideologues of the religious Zionist movement. The best known was Rabbi Kook. Okay, he promoted the religious foundations of the Jewish return. In 1923, became the first Ashkenazi chief rabbi of Israel. In 1936, there were more Arab riots, and 18 more Jews were killed in Tel Aviv and Jaffa. That would be already the areas that they were saved as. The Arab revolt eventually claimed 500 Jewish lives over the next 3 years. We're soon going to stop.